Okay, Jim?
Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of AARP Massachusetts Fraud Talk Tuesdays. Excuse me. Oh. We're here the second Tuesday of each month from 12 to 12:30, where we discuss a different scam and how you can protect yourself and your family from becoming a victim. My name is Jim Aldred, and I'm a volunteer here with AARP Massachusetts. And our guest today is Jim Carney, who's also a volunteer with me and several other wonderful folks here at the Massachusetts Speakers Bureau. Now that we're in the middle of tax season, today's topic is tax identity theft and tax prep scams. You may have joined us today with questions already in mind, and if you have, please put them into the question and answer section at the bottom of the screen, or if questions come up during the presentation, put them also into the Q&A section. This session is being recorded, and you'll receive a copy of this recording that you can share with your family and friends. And at the end of the presentation, we'll share a page with links to a number of resources, which will also be sent to you. So let's get started. Good morning, Jim. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. I hope everyone else is doing well.
We're doing splendidly. Jim, where would you like to start this morning's or this afternoon's presentation?
Okay, with all of AARP's fraud fighting efforts, prevention is the best way to avoid any scams, including tax preparation or tax identity theft. Tax time is stressful enough. Having someone file a bogus claim in your name or discovering that your tax preparer is a fake can raise the stress levels. So let's start with tax preparation. And always remember, with any fraud, scammers rely on three things: urgency, building trust, and finding your emotional triggers. Don't make a decision when you are being pressured. That puts you in a heightened emotional state, or what scammers call getting under the ether. And they build trust because they know you wouldn't give money or your personal information to someone you don't trust. So first, we'll discuss tax preparer scams. There are shady operators out there that the Internal Revenue Service calls ghost preparers. These ghosts don't have a legally required preparer tax identification number, or PTIN, don't sign the returns they work on, leaving you, the client, holding the bag for any filing falsehoods, and often require payment for the fees in cash only and don't provide a receipt. It's more than just a paperwork problem. Ghost preparers set up shop around tax time in pop-up offices or an internet site, or pitch their services at community gathering places such as churches. They lure customers with promises of big refunds, often basing their fees on a percentage of the refund as opposed to a flat fee. To inflate what you and they get back from Uncle Sam, they might invent income or falsely claim tax credits or fabricate deductions such as business, education, or medical expenses. By the time the IRS catches on, the ghost will have disappeared with your fee. Since only your name is on the return, fixing the quote mistakes is your responsibility. Along with paying the taxes you actually owe, you'll be liable for any penalties and interest that accrued while you were in arrears. Some ghost preparers take the scam a step further, stealing refunds outright by routing them into their own bank accounts. Other perpetrators of tax prep fraud work online, sending phishing emails that appear to be from tax pros, or creating imposter websites that claim to prepare and e-file your return. And the Federal Trade Commission warns that these sites look real. The goal of these sites is to collect personal information that can be used to commit fraud, including identity theft. We recommend that you visit the IRS website at irs.gov to get information about choosing a tax preparer and the credentials and qualifications of legitimate qualified preparers. The IRS also has a directory of qualified preparers.
Ghost preparers. Now that's a term that I've never heard before. That's interesting. And like you said, Jim, tax prep can be very stressful for most people. It is on the top list for favorite things to do. I know that I put it off as long as I can. What are some of the red flags that we should watch out for?
Yes, I understand that tax preparation is not on people's favorite things to do. So let's go over a few red flags. A scam tax preparer asks for payment in cash and doesn't give you a receipt. If a preparer charges fees based on a percentage of the refund, that's another red flag. Keep in mind that legitimate preparers charge based on the amount of work involved, the amount of time spent, not on the amount of your refund. A legitimate tax preparer will not mark your return as self-prepared or affix a business label rather than signing the form by name. And if the preparer refuses to sign the return or enter a preparer taxpayer identification number, that's another warning sign. The Internal Revenue Service requires both if someone else prepares your return.
Okay. What precautions can we take to ensure that your tax returns is in good hands? What do we need to do?
Do your homework. Besides ensuring that your preparer has a legitimate PTIN, check with the Better Business Bureau or Department of Justice Tax Division for complaints, injunctions, or criminal prosecution filed against a tax preparer. Ask lots of questions about the preparer's background and experience to make sure their skills match your needs. And if your return is audited or rejected, will they be there for you? Check the preparer's credentials on the IRS Directory of Federal Tax Return Preparers. Once you have begun working with a preparer, carefully review the completed return and ask questions about anything that isn't clear to you. If you are getting your refund by direct deposit, make sure that the bank's routing number and account number shown on the return is correct and is actually your account. Make sure that the preparer gives you a copy of your completed return and save it for your records. And finally, you should never sign a blank or incomplete tax form or allow them to file the return without allowing you to review it. Tax preparers can never promise a big refund without fully reviewing your financial situation.
Okay, that first one struck home. That was do your homework. That was something my father always was yelling at me. Do your homework, and I guess it's good advice here. Those are great tips. So what should you do if you find out that your tax preparer is a swindler and not on the level? What do we need to do?
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll have a slide at the end that will send to you with links to all the references I'm going to talk about. So here they are. First, call the police. You're a victim of a crime, and you should file a police report naming the preparer as a suspect. Second, you'll also want to fill out IRS forms 14157 and 14157A. These forms are to file a complaint about your tax preparer or to report tax preparer fraud or misconduct. You'll need a copy of the bogus return, a signed copy of the return you intended to file, proof of the refund amount, and proof that you've received the refund. You'll also need copies of the documents you received from the preparer. Next, if you received a letter from the IRS about the preparer, send the forms to the address on the letter. Otherwise, send them to the address on the slide that we'll send you.
Okay. Now, many of us has heard about identity theft and fraud. What should we know about tax identity theft?
As with many unpleasant things, we often put off doing our taxes until the last minute. But as much as you don't want to face those 1040 forms, there's one very good reason to file well before April 15th. It's your best defense against tax-related identity theft. And I will explain that. Tax ID scams usually work like this. Someone who's obtained your personal information, such as your social security number or date of birth, files a tax return in your name. They do so as early as possible because the scam relies on the phony return getting to the Internal Revenue Service ahead of the real one. So if you wait to file, the fraudster may have already gotten a refund, and you won't know you've been victimized until you get word from the IRS, either electronically or by mail, depending on how you filed, that it already has received, quote, your return, which
Okay.
actually is not your return, it's a fake return.
Right. How can your tax information be stolen? How do they get a hold of data?
Well, your tax data can be stolen in a number of ways. Theft of mail or tax returns, corrupt tax preparation services, phishing emails from imposters or hacks of tax firms, and employers' personnel records. Some criminals file in the name of deceased taxpayers or steal children's identities to claim them as dependents. And another twist, they might use your tax ID to get work, leaving you to deal with the IRS when his or her earnings aren't declared on your return. And fraud perpetrators are developing new ways to use your tax info to enrich themselves. For example, they may file a fake return, have the refund deposited in your bank account, then contact you posing as an IRS agent or IRS hired debt collector to reclaim the erroneous payment. As with identity theft scams generally, it pays to be proactive in safeguarding your personal data.
Well, I guess there's no end to what the scammers will do to get our information. So what are some of the warning signs we need to watch out for?
Well, I have a short list of items here. There are a number of notices you could get from the IRS, including that more than one return was filed using your social security number, that you didn't declare all of your income based on wages from an employer or a job you do not recognize, that an online account has been created in your name and you didn't create it, that you've been assigned an employer identification number that you didn't ask for.
Okay. So what about the things that we can do to protect ourselves?
Well, as I said before, file your return as early in the tax season as possible. After you file, check the IRS refunds page for the status of your refund. And again, that is at irs.gov. Get to know your tax preparer. Ask about data security and what they do to protect your information. Another good practice is to get an identity protection PIN from the IRS. This is a 6-digit code that can block someone who has obtained your social security number from filing a phony tax return in your name by giving the IRS a second way to verify your identity. And those identity protection pins are good for only 1 year, so that every year you'll get a new code. So if someone gets a hold of your old one, it won't do them any good. Keep personal and financial information secure and shred them when you no longer need them. Learn to recognize phishing and imposter emails. Don't give out personal information such as your address, date of birth, and social security number unless you know who's asking for it and why. Never click links or open attachments in an email or text message unless you are certain of who sent it and why. Keep in mind that the IRS initiates most contacts through regular mail, not phone calls, texts, or emails. And that's an important point to keep in mind. Next, don't carry your social security card or that of a family member. Ditto for documents containing social security numbers. Don't enter personal or financial information on a website unless you know it is secure. Look for HTTPS in front of the URL address or a padlock icon in the browser window before entering personal or financial information. Don't do anything while using a public Wi-Fi network that involves password-protected accounts or personal and financial data. Beware of phone scams where the caller identifies himself or herself as an IRS agent. They use fake names and IRS badge numbers and may know quite a lot about you from stealing your personal info. They will tell you that you owe money to the IRS and you must pay it promptly via gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. They may threaten you with arrest or other strong action if you don't comply. So remember that the IRS initiates such actions only by mail, and they do not accept gift cards or other untraceable forms of payment. If they threaten to suspend your social security number, it's a scam. The IRS doesn't do that. The IRS Identity Theft Central page has numerous resources for individuals, businesses, and tax professionals on preventing and dealing with fallout from tax identity theft, including a guide for taxpayers and detailed information on assistance for victims. If you are a victim of tax identity theft, fill out and file IRS Form 14039, which is an identity theft affidavit, if you have not received a letter from the IRS indicating that it has identified a suspicious tax return.
Okay. Jim, before we finish, with you telling us about some good resources that everybody can use, let's check to see if there are any questions. I don't see anything in the chat. Anybody in the audience have any questions for Jim? I know from past history, the IRS, if they do happen to call you, this is years ago, it happened to me, on a phone, it shows up in large block letters on your phone display, IRS. So they don't call with an 800 number, or 888 number. There's no denying who they are. Okay. Let's go to number 9, Jim.
So we're looking at, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna look at some resources here. We're gonna send out these slides to you. And these are things that every time you see a blue link, that's a link so that you can go to a specific website. So Jim mentioned filling out the forms 14157. So you can click that and that'll bring you right to that that document, as well as the other one with the -A. Internal revenue information is there, and you'll get this. And Jim mentioned a couple other things. We talk a lot about protecting your identity, especially around tax season. But one of the things we should do on a regular basis is think about freezing or monitoring your credit. You can either do a credit alert or a credit freeze. And a credit freeze allows nobody, even yourself, to open up any credit or check credit until it's unlocked. It must be done with all three credit bureaus, and it remains locked forever. The other thing you can do is get a credit alert. A credit alert simply warns you that somebody is looking into your credit. It doesn't stop them from doing anything. You must do it with one credit bureau. They send the information to the other two, and it lasts for a year. There's a link to identitytheft.gov, run by the Federal Trade Commission. There's a link to AARP's Fraud Watch Network. The Fraud Watch Network has lots of information about all kinds of fraud. If AARP also supports something called AARP tax aid. It's for people, you have to meet certain income requirements, but there's a link there if people want to sign up to get AARP tax aid to fill it out. And if you're not sure where to find one, there's a AARP tax aid locator. You can click on that. The other thing is, if you think you have been victimized by a scam or just have a question, you can call the AARP Fraud Watch helpline at 877-908-3360. They operate from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday Eastern Time. And there is a link right there to the AARP fraud. If somebody on the call has been victimized and would like to share their story, you can always contact Polly Hunt from our Massachusetts State Office at mhunt@aarp.org. And we would like to hear your story. One of the ways that AARP has found the best way to start healing is to tell your story. That's one of the first steps in going through the healing process after you have been victimized. Polly, you want to finish up with this slide?
I'd love to. Thank you, Dennis. And good afternoon, everybody. My name is Polly Hunt, and I'm the Community Engagement and Volunteer Director at AARP Massachusetts. And because you signed up for this Fraud Talk Tuesday, we thought we would also share a little bit about the advocacy work that we're doing in the fraud arena this year. Our advocacy team is supporting the bill number that you see there at the top of the screen, which is an act that's relative to preventing fraud in the crypto area. So it's not regulating crypto, as you can see here. This is fraud prevention, and it's becoming more and more common scam that we're seeing with crypto and Bitcoin. So if you're interested in following the advocacy work that we'll be doing this year in the fraud area, you can scan the QR code here that you see on the screen, or you can also text JOIN to 22777. You will have regular text that whatever your carrier's fees will be applied to texting to join and become an e-activist. And that way you can get involved with the important advocacy work that we're doing here at the state level. We will send all of this information as well in a follow-up with the YouTube link where this will be posted. And I also want to just give a sort of a quick commercial for our upcoming volunteer conference that we have on April 1st. Both Jims here, Jim Carney and Jim Aldred, are one of our amazing volunteers in our Speakers Bureau. We have a lot of different programs that you can get engaged with for volunteering, and the conference will be again April 1st at the College of Holy Cross in Massachusetts. And you can go to aarp.org/MA to learn about all of our upcoming events. So thank you to both of you, Jims, here for doing this. If there are any other questions, we welcome them in the chat or put them in the Q&A as well.
Yeah, hang on after we sign off, will you?
Yeah.
Are we offline?
Nope, not
No, we're
yet.
not. You've got a few more sentences here to go about what's coming up next month.
Oh, damn, I shut off. Oh,
That's
Yeah.
okay. I'll do it. I'll do it. We can,
you're stepping on
again,
my
we
toes, Jim.
thank
Dennis.
everybody for joining us today, and tune in next month on the second Tuesday, which is April 8th, when our topic will be how to recognize donation, charity, and giving scams. And remember, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.